Hey, imagine funding 300 plus mortgages a year and getting a good chunk of that from realtors and still loving realtors. If that sounds unbelievable to you, today's guest, Chris Allard, who's with Smart Debt Mortgages, it absolutely loves working with real estate agents and gets a good chunk of his business from that, plus from online leads from Google. In this conversation, we talk about how he's improved his processes, how he's put a team together to fund this many mortgages and has people in their lane. And altogether, it's just a fantastic conversation about how to build a business that scales, that you enjoy, and creates a great client experience. It's just full of golden nuggets. Have a listen. And as I always say, there's no problem in your mortgage business that someone else doesn't already solve. Chris has figured this out. You just need to know who's solved that problem. And then how can you copy it and put it into your business? Have a listen. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, my friend. I appreciate it.
So we're in, if you can see the video on this, we're in a studio that a friend of mine has in Ottawa, and I have major podcast studio envy looking at this. I have to get this set up.
Such a cool setup. I've never seen this other than this spot. So
right. And you've seen people, because this one is actually rentable, and so people in the community use it. You've seen realtors.
Yeah, there's plenty of realtors that use it. In fact, I'm a guest on a podcast next week that's hosted out of this podcast. Yeah, okay, so out of this spot. So yeah, it's a popular spot, super sexy look to it too.
Yeah, and it's all just built out. Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself first and how you got in the mortgage biz.
Yeah, nobody grows up saying they're going to be a mortgage broker. You hear that all the time. So I was 20 years old when I started, and really the super short story is that I went for a beer one night with a friend of mine, and he was there with a friend of his, and the guy was talking about
my beer.
The guy was talking about his boat and his penthouse and his big SUV, and I was like, man, what do you do for work?
You know, a dealer? Oh no, a mortgage broker.
He was a mortgage broker, a highly successful broker, you know. And so I don't shy away from saying that, you know, the original start was a materialistic one, and it's been fruitful. So I've been in the broker business now 14 years. So I'm 34 years old.
Yeah,
and every year until following the pandemic, numbers got better every year pretty much. So it was really a cool ride that I've been on, and I've got a team that work with me now as well. So, you know, you start with one staff, and at this point, we currently have 6 staff that work with me. So a good little team, and the business changes over time, right? Originally, it was purely about hunting and eat what you kill, and now it's a bit of that and managing the team as well.
Right. Okay. I'm going to ask about your team stuff. So tell me about, what was the peak, if you don't mind me asking, what was your production like in the peak during the pandemic?
Yeah. So the peak of the pandemic was 600 files in a given year, which I'm still surprised I even say that.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And that was done with 3 staff. And like many mortgage brokers, I mean, look, I woke up, went to my extra room in my house. I sat there all day, all night. And the biggest challenge at that time was just serving the client in a timely manner. We had basically automated emails saying, we have a log jam and we hope to get to you, you know? So right. That was a wild year, phenomenal from a cash flow and cash flow standpoint.
Not sustainable, not with 3 people anyway.
No, absolutely not. I mean, we all worked endless hours, right? And in fact, that's really what made me realize that we couldn't do that moving forward. I had one of my team members, my rock star, who essentially said, "Hey, this is no longer for me."
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I would assume it's mostly from a mortgage burnout kind of situation. For me, I didn't see it that way at the time because I was just excited to do more mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not all built to just sit at a chair and work all day, all night, right?
Right.
So from that moment on, we evolved, and I really started to think about how we can have a better process, and if we can add more bodies, and how do we do things better? How do I achieve doing 600 files again, which I have not done since,
mm-hmm.
right? But it's really a target that I have in my mind because that was a really exciting year for me.
Right, but do it with a little bit more sanity.
A little bit, absolutely. I now have 2 kids. I didn't have children at that time.
Yeah,
things are different, right? And you want to achieve the same numbers, but in a different fashion.
Right. It's not just what you do, it's how you're doing it and what that looks like. You're 9 to 5 and not 9 to 9 or 9 to 11 or whatever you're doing.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think the challenge that I have always had is I essentially built a business where my referral partners, my team, the lenders, they expect that Chris is working 24/7 because that's really who I was,
mm-hmm.
and who I still am somewhat. So I'm trying to rework that a little bit because you just can't do that when you've got young kids. No. I've got a 1-month-old, for example.
Right. And and they're in the car. No, just kidding. They're not in the car.
Yeah, they're waiting outside.
Yeah, they're waiting outside. He's ready. Look at that. No kidding. So right now you said you have 6 team members.
Yeah.
Break down for me what they do? So, because I always find it interesting to see how do you do because when you add bodies, you increase complexity and you can degrade the experience if you're not careful.
Absolutely.
Tell me about how you structure this.
Hey, we worry every day about, we don't just want to add bodies. Adding bodies doesn't mean you're going to do more units or volume or better experience for sure. So a significant part of my business is real estate referrals, realtor referrals, and web leads. So roughly 30% of my business is realtor based and 30% of my business is from Google. And that essentially means that I'm very purchase heavy. We help a lot of people financing purchases. And due to that, what we were realizing prior to the pandemic, in the pandemic, and then following the pandemic is that if we had mountains of work to do, we would always serve the client who actually had a purchase first. And we weren't really treating the pre-approvals in a timely manner, which was problematic for me because I built my business on realtor referrals.
Right. So
essentially, the big change that came out of the pandemic is that we have 2 dedicated staff where their full-time job is working on pre-approvals.
So like how many pre-approvals would you be working on at a time?
Well, so I mean, we'll have a little over 100 leads a month.
Yeah.
And naturally, some of those pre-apps take, a day and some of them linger for a while because we only tell people
some of them don't go past for initial, okay, you know what, we can't help you.
For sure. And I'd say that many of them intend on sending you documents, but that takes a week or 2 weeks or whatever that ends up being. So we've got 2 dedicated staff that do pre-approvals. We've got 1 underwriter that's on the live deal side. So once you have a purchase or a refinance or renewal, his name is Matt. Matt works on assessing what the real options are on that given day. And either he'll have the product and rate call or I will.
Yeah.
And then we have a document fulfillment person. We had 2. One of them is retiring like right now.
Yeah.
And we also have an executive assistant or admin, whatever you want to call that.
A bit person. Of universal.
Basically, she helps me solve my daily challenges. I will say she's on mat leave at the moment, so I miss her dearly, and she's back in about a month.
Right. Okay. So you've got, and then talk to me, because this is a unique, again, of different models, but you got these 2, because you're so purchase heavy, and you've got these 2 pre-approval specialists, if you will. So do you do the discovery call when the lead comes in, or are they doing that and only getting to you? Where do you enter into those conversations?
Yeah, so the beauty of one of the guys I have on the pre-app team is that it's my brother. My brother's name is Phil.
Right.
And we're called the Allard Mortgage Team or Chris Allard Mortgage Team. But as soon as you say my brother will call you, it kind of puts borrowers at ease.
Right.
So I do some of the lead calls. My brother does a larger portion of them. Basically, whoever can get to it first is kind of how we operate. And we try to call every lead within 4 hours. And we really strive to do it within the hour. Yeah. We want to be mindful that that's because a significant part of my origination is from Google reviews and people reaching out online.
Timeliness, it helps.
Absolutely. It's speed kills for sure. Yeah. So that's kind of the dynamic. And so I do... I don't really want to put a number to it, but it's probably something like 25% of the leads, and my brother probably does about 75% of the leads.
So then where do you come into the process? So I'm assuming the pre-approval specialists get their thing going, and then is there a strategy session at that point? If they have an offer or don't have an offer, what happens?
Yeah, so ultimately we've worked really hard at allowing Matt, who's our lead underwriter, to grow and also do strategy calls. And so there are some files that go from the pre-approval side to Matt's desk, approved, and then to the document fulfillment side, and I don't touch them. There's a good portion of files that way. However, I'm very much in the loop. I get to pop in kind of like the dentist and just say, hey, how are you? Right. Or I get to reply to an email saying, hey, big congratulations to you. I had a look at the MLS listing. What a great house. Things like that. So I do take part in about half of the strategy calls. So half of them I'll do and half of them Matt will do.
Yeah.
And I very much am involved in the process from start to finish, but I try to be in a secondary role throughout the process. And we've really worked hard at making my schedule a bit more free so that when we do have a challenging phone call or a file that might be going sideways that happens in this business, I can jump in and help as an expert. rather than say, hey, my schedule is booked, I can't really help the client that's having a hard time.
Right.
So it allows me to help clients, and it also allows me to help my team in a more efficient manner if I'm not the one.
So if you think about the 20% that really need you, you can jump it. You have the capacity to jump in.
Absolutely.
And the other ones that are going straight forward, someone else can manage most of it.
Absolutely, for sure.
Right. And then, so what do you do with the rest of your day? And so how many files are you averaging per month, if you don't mind, like right now on this?
Good question. I really should know my numbers. At least coming here, I should have prepared for that. But this year, I think we'll probably do something like 350 files-ish.
Right. So 50 files-ish a month.
Yeah. Yeah. In the summer, it was a little over 50. And now we'll see what happens, but close to that number. Yeah.
And then, so what did you, so what else do you do with your day? So how do you, like, you're getting Google reviews. So tell me about, you said you get about a third of your business from that.
Yeah.
So that's like, if you're doing 350, that's 100 files. How many Google reviews do you have?
Close to 600. I think I'm like 575.
Okay. So that's got to be by design, because I know other people that have been in the business as long as you, and some of them have done in some cases, even more files, like Jim Terlucas, and has no Google presence at all. So tell me about because that's obviously design. What do you do? How do you do that?
Yeah, I've come in and out of asking for Google reviews over time. I mean, if you really add up the amount of files I've done over my career, and especially over the last 5 years, I should probably have even more reviews. Well,
that's always the case. You're always going to, even if everybody says they're going to do it, you know that if they love you, they just don't do it.
So the way that we currently do it is whoever is the document fulfillment person, let's say Denise in most cases moving forward, she will send a file complete email. If the client replies saying thank you, either Denise or myself will ask for a Google review. And then at funding, if Denise will send an email saying congratulations, file is closed, we're here to help. If they reply saying thank you, then either Denise or myself will ask for a Google review.
Right.
So we only ask if they've said thank you, and currently we only ask via email. I'm not going through the process of making the phone call. Right. I used to early on when we got a lot of the reviews. That's what I was doing. We just have a bit of a capacity issue for me to be making those phone calls at the moment.
Right. So, but initially, if somebody was starting out, you'd do it a bit more. Not aggressively, but you'd be more persistent about asking when you're trying to build it up. When you get to 600, if you don't need to add as many because you're already at the top of the pile.
So I would definitely say if you want to have a Google presence, you should pick up the phone and call when someone's file is complete, and you should ask for a Google review at that point. That's probably their happiest moment. On funding, if it's a purchase, they also often have a lot of other things going on that day, and they kind of forget. Even if you poke them a few weeks later, it becomes on the to-do list. So I encourage people to ask whenever the file is complete. That's probably the best time.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to the Google reviews in general, I've always been conflicted when brokers ask me, like, should I ask for Google reviews? And the answer is yes, but you really become a slave to your Google reviews, because it's inevitable that we have a file at one point that goes sideways, or that the experience might be a little, not quite as good as what you wish you did. And people are quick to give a negative review, slow to give a good review. And so once you start asking for reviews and you start getting leads online, these people are more apt or more likely to give you a negative review if they didn't enjoy the experience. That's where they found you.
Found you from Google, they're going to then...
Absolutely. Right. So, the first time I had a negative review, crushed my golf game that day. I was playing golf, and let me tell you, I didn't enjoy that day at all. And I fortunately, we don't have a lot of negative reviews. I think we've got 4, and we all have opinions of our very few negative reviews.
Yeah, funny,
but all that to say that I think everybody should tackle it, even though the new way of the world is maybe Instagram or TikTok or what have you. I think there's still plenty of people doing Google searches.
Right, and it obviously still creates. And then, so last question on the review: what are the quality of the leads like that find you from Google?
Trick question, I guess. Many of them are, I guess it depends how you rank as well. Like we've spent a lot of money on SEO, and we rank for things like first time home buyer or mortgage broker in Ottawa. And so the people who are searching us organically tend to be better leads, and you can tell because they'll say, we read your website, and they'll say comments like that.
Yeah,
absolutely. And oftentimes they'll say, hey, Chris, you were the first human after the first 3 or 4 mortgage broker in Ottawa that are just brokerages or a bank.
Mm-hmm.
You were the first human, so we figured we'd reach out to
deal with
you.
A person.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, anyways, essentially just be careful with your Google reviews. If you're going to jump in properly,
Right. And then, so you said another third of your business comes from real estate agents. So why do you think realtors Why do you think they use you so much? I mean, I don't know the answer, but I think I know the answer. But I want to hear your thoughts. Yeah,
I'll say this. I mean, firstly, I enjoy hunting for business. I know a lot of people in our industry over time want to get away from the real estate business because it can be taxing on the soul a little bit. I love hunting for business. The thing I get the most excited about is winning a new realtor opportunity and seeing their first lead come in. Like that just makes my day. So beyond just enjoying the hunt for the business, the most simple thing that we do that we talk a lot about is communication is the key. We've heard that numerous times in our industry, but you have to mean it. You have to do it well. Realtors expect instant updates. If we have a lead and we speak to their lead, we'll send them a one-liner email. It's all one-liner emails.
Which is all they really want anyway.
They just want to know sort of kind of what's happening and that you're on it. And even when we go through our list of leads or pre-approvals on Mondays and Thursdays, kind of our pipeline review, we'll send an update to the realtors that sent business in that pipeline, just saying there's no update yet, but here's, we're waiting, or we sent a poke to the borrower. So there's a lot of communication touches with our realtor partners. I've tried to incorporate video as well. I'm using Loom a little bit. I mostly use Loom when I'm thanking them for an opportunity, but I haven't incorporated it fully yet. I'm still learning how to do that properly.
Right. Okay. So, but basically it comes down to communication, and you're great at building relationships, and then you create a great experience for the client and the real estate agent, and that all creates more, and then your reputation. You've been doing this a long time.
For sure. Again, speed kills. If you're fast, realtors always appreciate that. It's like a race to them getting a paycheck. So we operate in a very, very quick manner as best we can. And that's something that has kept me a bit of a slave to the business. There's some negative sides to it too. There's reasons why I've worked endless hours in our business. And you could say that that's maybe not so great from a personal life side of things. So again, when you're looking at the different models that you operate in, I'm in a model that's Google-based, realtor-based. All of this stuff is instant and pretty much 24/7. So there's other ways to build the business, but this is what gets me excited and how I've done it.
Right. Yeah. And you're playing to your strengths. So it's like anything, if you're good at it, then why would you not just keep doing that? Do more of that type of business.
And I want to do a quick shout out. I mean, one of the biggest things or differentiators that helped me years ago was actually doing the game of phones that you had.
Oh yeah. We still do that actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even know how long ago this was. It might have been 10 years ago, but that really propelled me or changed my mindset on really looking at calls as a good thing. And it was, 10 calls to realtors and 10 calls to past clients and 10 calls to friends and whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I did that with Alex McFadden, the mortgage pug.
Yeah.
He was kind of my partner, and he's a rock star himself. I don't need to say that again. So anyways, all that to say that was a huge, huge help to my business early on, was the game of phones.
Right. Just getting it going. Is that still part of your business model, or what are you doing now?
I mean, over the last few years, the biggest challenge was actually handling capacity and still giving quality of service.
Right.
We are now again in a growth mode. I feel like every team member in my squad knows what their lane is, and we're all excelling in our lane. And so it's giving us opportunity to grow again, which makes me happy because it gives me opportunity to hunt for business again. So long story short is I'm not doing the game of phones like we used to, but now I have a few targets every week where I might be two new realtors or two existing realtors, or things like that. Mostly people I've always chatted with.
Because if you're doing files with people, there's a lot of communication. Now it's just keep maintaining that relationship versus having to go find a new one.
And also, because I am known in Ottawa, there's a lot of realtors that get excited when I reach out to them. They're like, "Oh, I finally get to do a file with you."
Right.
And that's pretty cool. It gives me a little pat on the back for sure. I forget that sometimes that people recognize me, and
your reputation precedes you, as you say, right?
It gives me a real cool opportunity. That's for sure. And I will say, I want to take the opportunity to mention as well that Ottawa is a really interesting market. A lot of brokers know each other. It's like a big, small city or a small, big city. And a lot of brokers don't compete with other brokers. If another mortgage broker's looked at a file and the client's calling me, I'm asking why they're calling me. And half the time I really try to send them back to where they came from, or I pick up the phone and call the other broker. I think that comes with the territory. Once you're known, and I've shaken hands with a lot of brokers, I don't want them to feel like I'm trying to hunt their business down.
Right. Yeah, and there's more than enough opportunity for everybody.
There is ample opportunity here in Ottawa.
Yeah, we're doing Game of Phones again, and one of our agents, he did this this week he had booked 10 realtor meetings one day and 7 the next, which is insane. Like
That's crazy.
That's crazy. So he was putting up numbers that we were very impressive. And it still works at the end of the day. Like it's the fundamentals. Like people are not, the communication you talk about with your realtors, they're not going to be like, no, I want less communication. I want to have to look for updates. They're always going to want good communication. And so the basics do work. It's people want the fancy thing, but just stick to the basics.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's a great thing if they say you're over communicating. I actually had a realtor tell me that recently, like, hey, Chris, like you send me a lot of updates. Like it's a lot. I'm like, well, do you prefer to be in the loop or not? Right. And it's all a mindset thing, of course.
I'd rather be over communicate with them. What's something, a process improvement that you've made in the last year, 6 months to a year that you are thinking, dang, I wish I should have done this sooner?
There's a few things. I mean, I mentioned that I'm incorporating Loom at this point. So that I'm doing that for realtor partners. I'm also doing that for some of our clients. Perhaps there's a file that I didn't get the opportunity to touch and I just want to send them a quick video, make them feel like I exist and I care, because I do care. Yeah. So there's that, Loom. Number 2, I got a coach, Dave Reynolds. He's part of the Ruminate group. He's from Halifax. And the purpose of me getting a coach was trying to get back into the growth mindset. And I think my core qualities are in sales. And I'm a leader by design, meaning people typically want to follow, but I'm also a challenging leader to follow because I'm just willing to work all day, all night. And so I need Dave to continue coaching me and working with me to get the best out of my team, without just consistently saying, just do it. And that's one of my favorite quotes. Yeah. Absolutely. I've been through that path already. We talked about it, but I do believe in that slogan, just do it, that Nike one. Yeah. I've always operated that way, and I try not to push it on others. And so a different quote that I've been resonating with lately is no pressure, no diamonds. Yeah. That's a really good one. Or pressure is a privilege. That's Billie Jean King, the tennis player.
Yeah, I saw that one recently and I thought that's so great, because sometimes we can feel like, oh, there's so much pressure, but no, that's actually a privilege. Like that means people want to work with you. That means that you have business opportunities, that you get to take care of your family and your team. And so it's all, again, it goes back to mindset of being grateful for that instead of feeling frustrated.
Absolutely. And I'm the kind of person, I do want it all. Like if I can have more opportunities, do more transactions, I want to do it. And so just to kind of circle back is I am in growth mode, and my coach is helping me do that. Really going back to some of the basics on how to get the best out of my team members, because we all truly, genuinely want to win. But how do we get the best out of each other? And how do we make sure we're all staying in our lane?
And then do you guys work remotely or in an office, or what's your setup that way?
Yeah, so I've got half the team working remotely and half the team in the office. So I would say, I got to be careful as to the language here, but like the core part of the team is in office. What I mean by that is myself, my brother Phil, who does most of the leads, and then Matt, who's the primary underwriter. The people that work from home are document fulfillment, the admin, and Phil's helper on the pre-app side, whose name is Jason. So we've got a hybrid model. Right. But for those of us who work at the office, we work at the office every day. And I really think that working at the office, for me, for the team I have, is beneficial. Being mindful, again, that I deal with realtors, I deal with web leads. Everything has to be instant. And so from a distance, you can have all the processes in place and all the systems, and you can chat with your team, send them a little note, but that message is taking like 6 minutes. Right. Whereas if I just open the door and ask Matt what's happening with Sally's file, I know right away. Right. And so for me, it's been better in office.
There are efficiencies that you gain from being in office and inefficiencies, but it's, again, I think that's good. What's something that you've tried, could be, business related, that didn't work? So what's a fit? Like if we look back and go, man, but I always think that when, in hindsight, there's a lesson in it. So can you think of something that you'd failed at and now looking back, you picked up something from it?
Yeah, I think trying to get into a few too many lanes at the same time.
Give me an example?
So for example, I got into buying real estate. I got into doing some private mortgages. It started to spread myself pretty thin. And then you start to realize like you're able to succeed in those different avenues, but is it diluting your core lead flow? And how many hours do you have in a day? Can you actually successfully do all those things? And so I do some private lending, and I do have some real estate, but I've really toned it down on wanting to grow those pieces, because I've realized that if I just put my head down and do mortgages every day, it's a pretty lucrative business, and I
make
enjoy
a lot per hour.
and I enjoy doing it.
Yeah. And it becomes more efficient. Have you ever tried like having sub brokers or agents or anything?
I have not. So my entire team is salary and bonus based.
They basically all work on your production.
Yes.
So they make your production possible.
Yeah. So everyone is salary and bonus based. I will say I've been toying with the idea of maybe having a renewal specialist.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that might be a commission based role. I've found that renewals are increasingly difficult. In fact, on the way here, I was listening to Jim Torlucas' podcast with you about renewals. I'm just trying to get an additional edge, because it is a challenging time for renewals. And I think that it'd be awesome if I could have one dedicated commission-based agent who wants to tackle all my renewals. Because when you think about it, there's 300 to 600 of them coming up each year.
How many clients do you have in your...
I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah. No, I don't. But a lot. I mean, 14 years of
a bunch.
Lot. Yeah.
And so, that would be a low-hanging fruit thing for you to do, to add another 50 to maybe 100 files a year.
Yeah,
depending on.
Absolutely. And it's not like we ignore renewals. We do.
But you're only being reactive. If they say, "Hey, I want to talk to you," okay, great, we'll help you. But you're not.
I should clarify that. I mean, we've actually done a great job. I had used Chris Johnstone's team to call all of my clients twice a year.
Yeah.
And so we actually kept a great rapport with many of our past clients, consistently talking to them by phone and really trying to keep that relationship piece.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I've stopped that program as of about 6 months ago. And the reason I stopped it is probably not for the right reasons. I stopped it because the program was almost too successful. The clients wanted to talk to me. Clients wanted to plan for their renewal. And these are all great things. But what was happening is we weren't able to serve our real live deals because I was talking so much to all of our existing customers.
Right.
So that's perhaps something that, going back to your other question, maybe I quote unquote failed at, or am working on improving that a little bit. Like, how do I balance all of these opportunities on the lead side and still do all the existing pipeline files? And I can't say it enough. Like, I truly genuinely care about my clients. Like, I think people say that, but I really mean it.
Yeah.
And so it kind of frustrates me that I've canceled that program and calling the clients twice a year. I just have to rework it a little bit and see what the best way is.
You need another person.
I think,
and you know what? Just as a thought, you could do is you send out a video to your clients saying, "Hey, this is John, my renewal specialist. He's fantastic at this, and so he's the one who's going to help you work through it. Of course, if you have any issues, I'm always here." But basically, you do a way to make the person trust the renewal specialist.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't fear that challenge at all.
Yeah.
From a trust. I mean, look, we've got a team of 6. My team.
But I'm meaning so they don't have to want to talk to you.
Yes.
What I'm trying to do is, what you want to do is like not have them go, because otherwise I can imagine that you're filling up your calendar and then you're not able to jump into that 20% of files that need you for files that might close in 6 months.
Exactly. And so you're bringing up the right point, which is, maybe it's an additional body on my team, and it kind of goes back to one of the original things we talked about, which is I don't just want to keep having more people on the team.
Yeah.
I'm cautious. Like, I don't want to just dilute the quality of what we're doing. And so it's a balancing act that I'm working through at the moment.
Yeah. But you know what? You could do straight commission, but the rest of your team, it'd be almost like they're alone. Pay them a lower salary, possibly with a better upside, so that you're committing to something, and then give them 3-4 months and see how it goes. I mean, it's not going to be that much of an expense outlay.
Yeah, I guess it depends.
And then you can control you can dictate their times a little bit more and say, I need you to be doing this between this and this, versus somebody on commission. So it can be a little different. But.
And I'll say, I mean, I think my hesitation on that has been that I see renewals being increasingly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I if I'm going to add a person, I want them to succeed. And so I want to give them the tools to succeed.
Right.
I'm like, what is the right number to make you enjoy your job and actually close a few transactions? Because even if you're getting paid, if you're not closing renewals, it's not an enjoyable day at work.
It doesn't make sense from a business perspective either. So that's interesting.
So in saying that, another thing that I've struggled with over time is making quick decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So when
you make them quick or you don't?
I do not make them quick. It's actually probably my biggest weakness that I have.
See, I am the opposite. I'm when I think of something great, I tend to start going, and sometimes it's a dumpster fire, but then sometimes you're like, hey, it actually worked.
Right.
You know.
So it's something that my coach is pushing me on. In fact, we've built a bit of a compass, and one of the 4 things I work on is making decisions a little quicker.
Right. I mean, the thing is, that kind of decision, it's not like one that you can unmake it. So what you need to do is make a 3-month decision. I'm going to make a 3-month commitment to this, and then we'll reevaluate, instead of thinking that this is it's not a forever thing if it doesn't work the way you expect.
Yeah, for sure. And
sometimes that can, I don't know, just a thought. Okay. So is there anything else? I think it's awesome, the business that you built. And you remind me, I was talking to Sarah Albert. She's based out of Moncton, and she's doing like 400 mortgages a year, and her goal is to get to 600. And she's amazing human. And as I talked about people in their lanes, and she's great at going out and getting the business. And so it sounds like you guys have a lot in common.
I hopefully I can meet her.
Yeah, at some point if you get to meet her, I'm sure you'd really enjoy a conversation with her, because you guys are very similar in terms of how you're wired and what you do. So is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think would be useful for our listeners? I mean, this has been a great conversation, and anybody listening, like, take notes.
Yeah. I think in conclusion on all this, an additional thing, as you grow teams, you want to give the opportunity for your team members to grow. And I think hiring the first staff or the second staff might just be underwriting and admin. And I don't want to dilute and say that it's easy to find them, but as you really grow a team, you have to find ways to give your team opportunities to have more important roles and perhaps get paid more if you intend on keeping the team together for a long time. So right. It's something that I want to share with the listeners, to just say, really be thoughtful of what the opportunity is that you're giving to your team members if you do want to build a team.
Right. Yeah. Sarah was telling me, which is interesting, which I think is great advice. She said that she always checks with her team and goes, are you happy where you are? Do you want, and some people are like, I don't want more, like they like their role and they don't want more responsibility, even though they could do it, but they're just, so part of it is also understanding that I've had trouble with this because I always got big dreams. You can't have bigger dreams for your people than they have for themselves. Right. So you have to match what they want with what you need, and be okay with the fact that they may be happy with that. And that's cool. But there's other people that if you don't give them that opportunity, you won't keep them because they'll be looking for something else.
And you have to do a constant pulse check on that, because people's goals changed, right?
Yeah.
I have kids now. My goals have shifted a little bit, right?
Yeah. That's a good reminder too, because it's not like my goals haven't. Yeah. People do change. Like a life situation can happen, anything. And if you're not checking in all the time, what you thought was okay, but maybe it's not working now. And yeah, that's
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The last thing I'd say to do is the fulfillment is the easiest thing for you from anybody else listening, is the easiest thing. First thing you should probably offload, which is just, document collection, review, sorting, because it's the least expensive, least technical, but also very time consuming.
Absolutely. And Ontario is notorious for having a lot of brokers that don't send files with all documents up front. We are a team that does send most of our documents up front.
How do the lenders, just for anybody who doesn't, let's try to convince these people that aren't doing this. What is the relationship with the lenders like when you do that?
I truly believe that a lot of underwriters and lenders are very happy when they see a Chris Allard file come across their desk.
Right.
It's packaged with a bow, and they know the good, the bad, and the ugly about it. And most of the documents are there. And if you really want to make friends with your underwriters and get your file to the top of the pile, I guess
get more yeses. You will get more, because there's stuff that comes that's kind of in between. They could say yes or no, but if they like you and you make their job easy, you're going to get a yes. If it's going to be more, and if you don't, you're going to get a no.
And here's the nugget actually on all of that is be nice to your underwriter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my goodness, being kind to people makes the world of a difference. And it allows you to, I don't want this to be seen negatively, but it also allows you to push the envelope just a tad from time to time when you actually need something, because underwriters are willing to help you if you've helped them. Mm-hmm. So you've helped them by giving them better documents and also by making their day.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks, Chris, for chatting with me. This was awesome.
Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks again for listening. I'm Scott Beckford, and hopefully you found this episode to be useful for you. And, thanks again, Chris, for coming to have a conversation with me. I loved hearing about what you've done with your business, and absolutely phenomenal numbers that he's been putting up, but also just a great guy and genuinely cares about his team as well as the people that he works with. If you want to find Chris, you can click on the show notes. We'll have links to go to find him. You can reach out to him, shoot him a note on social and say, hey, Chris, thanks for your episode. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. As always, thanks for listening, and I will see you on the next episode.